In this video, we're going to do some modifications to the old ZR800 back here, so sit back and I'll show you what we're going to be up to. All right, the weather's getting colder outside, so we're getting out of tractor season and we're getting into snowmobile season. So that means it's time to do some maintenance and some upgrades on my ZR800 cross country here, right? So you guys have seen this in a couple other videos before. I'll put a link up here where I redid the recoil system to put a bigger diameter recoil to make it easier to pull over. Put another link here where I did some preseason maintenance to show you what to do to get it ready for the season. So what we're gonna do today is two things. So first of all, I extended this from 121 to 136 like 5 years ago-ish. And I've noticed I get quite a bit of sag in the back there since I did that extension. So, you know, the geometry is all different. So there's more forces on the back there. So that back end sags pretty good when I'm sitting on it. And it does bottom out the suspension quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull the skid out. And I'm going to put what they call Fat Boy torsion springs on this thing and see if we can't get it to hold itself up a little better once when we're on there. The other thing we're going to do, since we're pulling the skid out, I think it's a good time to replace the drive shaft bearings. Usually I replace those every 3,000–4,000 miles and we're due, just as a precaution because we don't want those to fail when we're out riding around. So hopefully we get a lot of snow this year and I don't want to have a failure out on the trail. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So let me get myself set up here and I'll show you what we're dealing with. 1 second. Alright, so I'll just show you what we got going on here. So here's the brand new torsion springs. I'll zoom in here so you can see the part number there. So there it is right there. And then there's the other one right there. So these are actually from like a Pantera or like a bigger sled. So that should give this a little bit more support. So what these torsion springs do here, right? So you can see there, they run right here. They go up here, and then they go right over here. So I do have this set at the stiffest setting. So this is adjustable. There's 3 different levels you can set it. I've got it at the stiffest setting right now, but this helps hold the butt end of the sled up through this spring right here, and while you're pushing down right here to help keep things from collapsing. Now, this sled is 22 years old. It's an 02. We're in 2024 right now, so these springs can get clapped out and lose some of their springiness, which I think is what's going on here. So we got these brand new bad boys here. Actually, we got it from Country Cat. They seem to have the best price on this, but I'll put a link in the description to these actual parts if you want to order them for yourself. But so that's one thing we're going to do here. So the easiest way to do that is to actually remove the whole skid out, right? The other thing we're going to do, like I said, is the drive shaft bearing. So basically, let me flip up our lid here. A couple years ago I replaced the top ones, so those are good. But there's a bearing down here under the secondary where the speedo gear is that the drive shaft, so up here where our cogs are, there's a bearing on either side of that. So there's one right here where the speedo gear is, and then I'll walk around to the other side here. Get a little crowded in here. And here's our chain case. Oop, get out of the glare here. Here's our chain case, so there's a bearing up here. There's a bearing down there. Like I said, I already replaced the upper bearings, but the lower ones are in need of replacement, so down there. So in order to do that, I need to drain the chain case. So there's a plug on the bottom there where I can drain out the oil. Need to take out my exhaust, unbolt that cover there, go around to the other side. I'll pull my secondary off, and then I will pull off my speedo gear, and the bearing will be exposed. All right, so I'll show you that process as I'm going through it here. So let me grab my tools and we'll get going. Actually, before we get into it, I think we're going to run a little bit of an experiment here. So I want to see how much sag we get before and after this change. Okay, so first let's measure how high off the ground we are. So to the top of the grab bar here, we're about 23¼ inches. Okay, so now I'm going to set the tape measure like this. Try to get it even here so that the top of the tape measure is right at the top of the grab bar there. And then I'm going to have you watch on the camera here, and we'll see how much sag we get. and then I'll come back and I'll review the footage. All right, so I'm not on the sled. You do want to do this with the sled completely on the ground, by the way. If you have it up on blocks or anything like that, it's not going to, the track isn't, or the skid isn't going to act the same way as it is in the ground. So I've got everything on the ground, skis are on the ground, track's on the ground. So I'm gonna go ahead and sit on there and see how much sag we get. Okay, then I'll go ahead and hop off and review the footage. See what she says. Sprung back up. All right, let me take a look at the footage. We'll see what it says. All right, so it looks like we got about 3 inches of drop just from me sitting on it there. So we'll go ahead and we'll compare that to once we put the new springs on there and see if there's any difference. Okay, let's get into it. I'm gonna go ahead and get some tools and we'll start draining that chain case. 1 second. All right, so chain case plug. Here's your chain case. It's actually down here underneath, like on the inside of the tunnel there a little bit. So basically you just have to go under there and reach with your hand, and it's like on the back side here. Pretty much screws in straight this way. It's a 7/16, so we just go ahead and we reach down there. See if I can do it with one hand. You're not going to be able to see it because it's in a very difficult spot to get to. But we're going to go ahead and flip that around. Come on, there we go. There we go. They normally come loose pretty easily, but all right. So I have myself a catch can here. It only holds that it's like 6 or 8 ounces of fluid, so there's not much down there, but basically then you just come around here, unscrew it by hand until you start getting fluid dripping out. All right, which hand's gonna be easier? I think my right hand. Yeah. Oh. Hold on, let me do this off camera. 1 second. Oop. Focus. Focus. There we go. You can see the chain case fluid is dripping out. It's nice and clear, so that's good. That means there's no contamination in there. And here's what her plug looks like. So go ahead and put that off to the side for safekeeping. I'm going to put it right up here. And then we'll jump up top and start working on the exhaust. All right, we're set up on the machine here. I think I got you a pretty good vantage point, but we'll move you if need be. But here's where we're going to start. So we'll start by taking off the upper exhaust pipe here. So I like to use a pick for this. It works pretty good, right? So get all these little exhaust springs off. Just a hook pick like this, and you can grab it, pull up and out, and they come right off, right? So we'll put these off to the side for safekeeping, and then we'll come back over here, and we'll get these 3 over here. 1, 2, and 3. These are the ones on the wide pipe line. I'm going to go to the other side and get that one off. A little hard to get in there. Okay, that bad boy's off. Set these off to the side as well here quick. And now we'll go ahead and, oh, we got this big spring here that needs to come off too. It hooks underneath here. Normally I can kind of pivot it a little bit. And just give it some slack and she comes off that way, right? Okay, so now we can lift our pipe out of the way real quick and easy. Set him off to the side here. Don't forget your little exhaust baffle there. Put that back in place here. There's another spring down here you have to get off. So go ahead and get him off. Let's go ahead and leave him down there. And then we got a bolt right here and a bolt right here. So those look to be 9/16 if I'm guessing right. I can't remember. It's been a while. Let's see. Did I guess right? Oh, 1/2 inch. Still letting my chain case drain out down there, by the way. Just, you know, let everything come out. Not a bad idea when you're down in here too, just to give everything a look over. Make sure the mice didn't get to anything and stuff like that. Just look around for signs of chewed wires or, you know, anything else like that down here. Since the sled does have some age on it, could be some things that need to be replaced. You never know. All right, so that's loose. Go ahead and hitch this off to the side over here with the rest of the parts. And then our chamber, there we go, should lift right off. Okay, put him off to the side. All right, there's a washer here and a washer here. Don't forget about those. Put those back with the nuts. Okay, now it is time to take off our chain case cover. So basically we have 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, looks like 6 bolts. Look to be 1/2 inch, so we'll go ahead and get those rolling here. Yep, 1/2 inch they be. Get them all loose here first. Oh yeah, that one is hard to get to. You actually need a wrench to get in there and get that one. Forgot about that. Go ahead and get the rest of these pop loose. Yeah, I'll go ahead and get my 1/2 inch wrench, and then we'll get back to business here. 1 second. All right. I've actually got a box end of my 1/2 inch wrench here. And that usually works pretty good to get this one. There we go. Because it's kind of hard to get to. Not a lot of room in there. Mother cat was not very gracious on that design. Excuse me. Woo! Yep. My fingies are not small enough to get in there to that one. So go ahead and get that one off. There we go. Getting a little bit of turnage on there. Okay. It's all for the fun of sledding, right, folks? Almost got her out. Seems like the threads are ridiculously long on this one. There we go. Yahtzee. All right, we'll put that off to the side with the rest of them. All right, let's see. Looks like I got 2 more to do. You're not gonna be able to see these because they're like kind of back in the corner there, but we're gonna switch over to our ratchet with a 3-inch extension. I think that's what's gonna be able to get in there and get that one. Yep. Once you crack them loose, they come out pretty easily. So not much to be, not a very hard job. So make sure that there are lock washers on all these too. Make sure you don't drop those down in the hole as you're doing this. Just as an FYI. Okay, what else we got going on here? One more down here, and then that. Oh, should do it. Yep, see the case is loose, it's ready to fall out. Should have left some of the top ones in to help hold it, but we'll just use the hand here. Come on. All right, chain case is loose. You can see some of the goo-goo down in there that I want to go ahead and clean off, but doesn't look too bad. I don't really see any metal chunks or anything floating around in there, so that's a good sign. So we'll just set that off to the side, and we will get to work on the rest of it here. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. I'll maybe try to give you a better view, and maybe readjust the light so you can see a little better. Problem is hardly anything's magnetic on these darn things. Everything's aluminum. Let's see. Well, I'll just show you here, right? So we've got our tensioner here we have to loosen up a little bit. That's putting pressure on the chain, and we have a tensioner in here too. That's putting pressure on the chain. So we have to, this is real easy to come off. You just grab it with the pliers and pull off those wires, or pull off that wire there. And this we just have to loosen up to get that tension off. Then we have to take that nut and this nut off here, and the gears slide right off. So go ahead and grab the tools for that, and I'll show you that process. 1 second. All right, so I took our 9/16 and I loosened up our jam nut here and got our tensioner off. You do actually have to pull out this little cotter pin here. Forgot about that part. So I've got my needle nose. Pull out that cotter pin. There we go. And then this, you can just leave the other one hanging. That's fine. All right, so now our tension is off the chain. We're going to put this off to the side in a safe place so we don't lose it. With the rest of our hardware. There we go. All right, so now we can go ahead and take off our nuts for our gears there. Oops, I bumped you. Yep, you can still see. Okay, so that's going to be a 3/4 inch. So now here's what's going to happen. Oh, that actually came right off. Normally that's on there a little bit more snug. So you have to like bump it because it tries to roll over the engine and roll over the track as you're doing that. But, or actually tries to roll over the track, not the engine. All right, so we'll get that one loose. Get the bottom one. Yeah, see what I mean? So give her a good pop up. And then it'll come loose, and then it won't try to roll the sled anymore. So we'll get that bottom one off. They're both the same size, both the same nut. They both do have a big washer on there too, just so you know, to help it hold tension. So make sure you're taking that washer off too, and keeping it in a safe place, just like the rest of the hardware. Okay, we'll go ahead and get the other one. Now these are self-locking. You can see there's slits in there, so they do lock themselves on. Yeah, man. Checking to make sure I have oil there. All right, so put our washer and our nuts over here, and then we'll go ahead and we will slide off our gears. Okay, gears are off. We'll put those off to the side in a safe place. Be mindful of how the top gear, it doesn't matter. It's the same on both sides, but the bottom gear, you can see we're flat here. We've got a protrusion here. The protrusion goes towards the sled, okay? Okay, so now down here, this is our drive shaft bearing on this side. So we have 3 nuts on there. I believe they're 1/2 inch as well. So we take off those 3 nuts. This housing comes off. Then the bearing is inside there. So let's grab our, where'd our ratchet go? There it is. Ow. Yep, 1/2 inch. Whoop. Don't strip them. Like I said, these were still in good shape. It's just been, I think, 4,000 miles since I've changed them. So it's just good practice to do that every once in a while, just so that we don't have any breakdowns on the trail, right? Preventative maintenance. These are self-locking nuts too, just so you know, so they don't just spin right off my hand until you get to the very end. Like that one. Okay, we'll put him down here. And one last one on the bottom. Oh, hard to work here with the camera in the way. Well, we'll do our best. Okay. Get that one out of the way. And now our cover comes off. There we go. And our bearing's exposed. So now we can't get it out until we work on the other side, but yeah, we're in good shape here. All right, so now we'll jump over to the other side of the sled and show you what we have to do over there. Stay tuned. All right, we're over on the other side of the sled. I've already removed my secondary. That's real easy. It's just a one 1/2 inch bolt that goes down the middle here. You pull out and the secondary slides right off. Don't forget to take your keyway out with you here. Here's what the keyway looks like, right? Set that off to the side along with your secondary. I also changed gloves, so I had fresh, clean gloves. That way I wasn't touching my clutches and my belt with oily gloves. All right, so down here is our other cover to our, this is our speedometer gear right here, right? So here's the speedometer cable, runs all the way through the hood and up to the top where your speedometer is. And there's a little keyway in here, which you'll see in a minute, that controls that. It plugs right into the drive shaft. So we've got the same 3 half-inch bolts on this side that we have on the other side. So we're gonna go ahead and pop those little guys out. Self-lockers again, of course, so they're kind of difficult. Not really difficult, just check my motor mount out there. Just they don't spin out freely. You have to work them the whole way out, right? So, all right. Ooh. All right, top one should be off. All right, so this is where it gets a little bit difficult. So this is a carriage bolt that goes all the way through. So at some point it might start spinning on its own. So you want to reach under there by the drive shaft and push in. Going to be kind of a contortionist here. It helps to have long arms. Push in on the carriage bolt so that you can actually unthread this all the way. It's not really a good way to show you that, but I'm just basically reaching up there with my fingertip and my middle finger and pushing on that carriage bolt so that it stays engaged in the square inside of our housing there. To the point where we can get it out finger loose. All right, so that'll come out. Put that off to the side. Whatever. Ratchet, do the same thing. I'll do the bottom one next, I think. So it's right there. Okay, getting there. Yeah, slugs are not exactly easy to work on. They are, but they aren't. It's simple, but sometimes you have to, use multiple appendages just to work on what you're trying to work on. Oh man, almost there. And feels like we're there. Not quite there. Let's get that top one going here while we're under there. Sometimes you get lucky and they stay up in the carriage bolt there, but sometimes you don't. Or again, the carriage bolt stays where it's supposed to stay, but sometimes it doesn't. So that's kind of where we're at right now. This one's gonna come right off. Whoop, not quite. Almost there, but it is staying up in the carriage there where it needs to be. Okay, that one's off. Let's see here, what's going on? That one's almost off. All right, all 3 nuts are off, and pull off our housing. There's our grease. Grease is all good because I just put that in there last year. And here's that little keyway I was talking about. So that's what actually turns your Speedo. It's square and it's springy. Plugs right into your drive shaft down there, and then plugs into that that square hole there, and that's what drives your Speedo to tell you how fast you're going. All right, so that's all out. Now we need to go ahead and jump to the back of the sled and loosen up the track so we can get the rest of this all taken apart. So 1 second. All right, so here's how we loosen up the track. I have shown this in other videos, but I'll go ahead and show you now since you're going to be doing it anyways. Really all you need is a 9/16 inch socket. put it on this long bolt back here, put her in reverse mode, and pop her free. And then pull that bad boy back. Back it pretty much all the way out. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of lube on there because she's seems like we're getting a little corrosion on those threads there. I'm gonna keep my jam nut, try to keep my jam nut where it is there, because that'll make it a little bit easier when I'm tightening this bad boy back up, so that it aids in me tightening it up and, you know, getting everything track tensioned evenly. Man, I'm fumbling over my words today. Okay. I feel like I got a bit of threads left here. I'll go ahead and hit that side of the threads with some lube. About a ½ inch to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep working on that, and then I'll get the other side loose, and I'll quick show you how we're gonna pop it loose. So hold tight. All right, I got both sides loose. Now I'm gonna lift the butt end of the sled up, and I'm gonna use my overhead crane here that I have on a trolley. Now I made this video a couple years ago on how I did that whole process, but it works pretty slick. So put the link up here in case you want to watch that. But I love this thing for lifting stuff up like this, lifting up my lawnmower. I've lifted out, I lifted an engine out of my boat, lifted an engine off a tractor, and it's really nice to be able to lift it up and be able to slide it out of the way on the track. The one downside is you have to be pretty much, you know, dead center with it to lift it up properly, but usually not a big deal here. I got plenty of room here, but I can set it up basically across the whole shop here. So I'll go ahead and put you up on the tripod here, and we'll show you the lift, and we'll show you what we got to do to pop that track loose all the way here. So here, we'll lift up into the screen. It's going to lift up, you know, I just have this strap around the grab bar there. Just lift it up that far, that's it. All right, let me grab my dead blow. And all I'm really going to do is whack in on my track right here. You don't want to do this hard because you don't want to crack your bogey wheels. See, this was a little bit chewed up here. But just give her a smack, give her a smack. See the track tension loosening, so just want to do that until you can feel back in here. You can feel where the back of the adjuster is and where the wheel is on the axle, or the hole is on the axle. Just walk her all the way back just to make it easy on yourself. Okay, and we're there. All right, I'll bring you back for the next step. 1 second. All right, so basically now there are just 4 bolts holding my tunnel up. So I lowered the back end of the sled down a little bit just to take the tension off, but we've got a bolt right here and a bolt right here and the same 2 on the other side. So all we have to do is loosen those 4 bolts up and the sled will fall down now. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop these guys out, and that tunnel, or the skid, will not be attached to the tunnel anymore. Now there are some washers and things up in here. I don't think it's in the back here, I think it's more in the front, but you have to be aware of, so just make sure you don't lose those. But we'll go ahead and get this guy popped out of here. There we go. Yep, so I got a little bit of, gotta raise her up or lower her down just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, we got a little bit of tension on here. She doesn't quite want to wobble out, but it'll come. There we go. That one's out. So we got washers here on this side, washer and lock washer. I don't remember if there's anything on that side, but we'll find out once we bring it up. I'm gonna go ahead and do the back side over here. Get my tools out of the way. Turn my skis straight, help me out a little bit there. get the front one on this side while I'm over here, and I'll come back over by you and I will get that one. Oh, she's tight. It's not a bad idea to put some anti-seize on this stuff, just because it's exposed to a lot of the elements. You'll get salt on it sometimes too, depending on where you're riding. I think we're going to go ahead and do that this time. It doesn't look like I did last time, but I will this time. I definitely don't want those to get stuck in the skid. Almost out. Whoop. Move my oil out of the way so I don't spill that. Oh, there is a nut on the back of these, I forgot. Let me grab my 9/16 inch wrench and I'll bring you back. I'll go ahead and do that one off camera, and I'll come back and do this one. 1 second. All right, I got the other side off. It's gonna be easier for me to lay down here, so pardon me. Whoop, fumble. All right, where are we at here? She's loose. Man, again, you gotta be a contortionist sometimes to look on these bad boys. Okay. Got that one hand loose. Yep, there's a big washer on the back side here with this nut. Gotta take out with you, so don't lose that. A big heavy washer. Here. Yep. All right, and now I can slide our front bolt out. Oh, come on. Line it up just a hair. There we go. Okay, now our skid is free. So let me back up the camera and show you how we wrestle that sucker out of there. 1 second. Well, here, I'll just back you up like this. I like to lift up the sled a little bit too to get it out of the way. Now, it's just kind of a wrestling match. The skid is going to want to get caught on your cogs in here. So, just need to, oh yeah, one more thing. I got to detach my cable here for my dial adjust shock. So that's just up in here. There's a quick connection here you got to undo. And then you're going to feed this through the side of the tunnel. There we go. Now that's free. Okay. So now comes the wrestling match. Roll my skid forward a little bit. Try to lift up. Whoop, got some bushings falling. Make sure you don't lose those. Okay, yep, we're gonna lift the S and way up. Don't worry about that, that's just your hardware rolling forward. Keep my bushing here, there's going to be one on the other side. Alright, let's see if we can't get her out now. Keep moving. Going on over here. She's gonna go. Okay. Yep, we're just hooked up on some things, so we'll raise her up a little bit more. Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay. I'm kind of caught up sled here, so gotta lower that down a little bit. Two hands are definitely helpful. Two foot definitely helpful in this situation, but you gotta work with what you got. I'm all I got. Come on. Get out of there. Oh, so close. There we go. She's out. All right. My bushing is still up on this side, so that's good. Haven't lost that one. All right. Let me bring you back in a minute here. Let me catch my breath. Woo! All right, so now that everything's loose, I should be able to get my drive shaft bearings out pretty easily. So you can see this one's already kind of moving out of its way there. So just crawl under here. Hopefully I can show you. Oh man. All right, so here's our drive shaft and our cog. So I'm gonna push in that way. There we go. And here's my one bearing. Now I might have to grab on that and knock it out because it sometimes gets seized on the shaft there. But now I should be able to pull on the other side, and that one, here, I'll hop up over here. That one should be laying in the chain case over there. So I'll come and show you quick. Yep, there it is. So those are out. So let's go ahead and grab that guy. Yeah, it looks in pretty good shape yet. I'm gonna save this O-ring because I'm gonna need it for the replacement, but yeah, pretty good. All right, we're gonna work to get that other bearing off there, and I'll let you know how that goes. So stay tuned. All right, I went ahead and I pulled my drive shaft out, and I was living on bought time here. Let's see if you can hear this. Hopefully you can hear that, but to me I can hear it's like real gravelly, and I can feel it. It's like catching. It's not moving real smooth at all. So this bearing was about to detonate. She was living on bought time. Like I said, it's been about 4,000 miles, and that's about how long these things last. So that's where we're at here, right? Living on bought time. As opposed to the one in the chain case, that one's still nice and smooth, right? Feels really good. This guy's all gravelly, so she was about to detonate. It probably wouldn't have lasted the whole season last year. Good thing it was a short season, or I'd have had a problem. All right, this thing is pretty well stuck on here. I may have to wind up cutting it off, but we're gonna try seeing if I can just beat on it a little bit and get it to move. But yeah, so we'll work to get that off, and I'll show you how that plays out. All right, guys, here's what we're gonna try. I got my 3-jaw puller set up on here, and something important to note is you don't want to put the puller directly on your shaft because you've got that square hole in the middle there, and the point on the puller will wreck that. So I've laid down a washer and I've got a nut over it so that the point of the puller goes into the nut. All right, so let's try. Let's see if this will do anything here. All right, I think, yeah, I'm just pulling the bearing apart, which is okay. We can pull it. Whoop, yep. Ball bearings everywhere. All right, so now what we're gonna do is take a Dremel and put a slit in that race, that inner race there, and we'll be able to get that off. So let me get set up and I'll show you how that process is gonna work. 1 second. All right, I got you zoomed in here so you can see what I'm doing. So basically I'm gonna take my Dremel tool with a cutoff blade and just gingerly work in there. So I'm gonna get it down until I'm just about to the whoops, stay right there. Man, I guess I gotta get it set a little bit better here. Gonna get it so it's just about down to the shaft, but not quite in there. So doing my safety glasses on, so here we go. Okay, folks, we're right there. So let me go get a punch, and I'll see if I can crack that with a punch, and we might be able to bust that open there. 1 second. All right, there we go. I think we got it. I just basically took this punch, I put it on the ground, and I gave it 2 cracks, and I got it to move, and this bearing race cracked right open here. This stuff is really, really hard material, so chances are if you get it to move a little bit, it's going to crack. Okay, so let me grab a pliers. We got some sharp ends there. I don't really want to grab onto it with my hand. See if we can't get that baby to move off of there. It should come off because this bearing is basically, or the race is basically cracked in half there. Yeah, you can see we had some corrosion in there. Absolutely. Oh yeah, she's gonna come off. There we go. We're off. I'm gonna leave that collar on there for the time being, just because it may be set to the right width, though. So we'll see what happens with the new bearing, but we'll look at that in a minute here. So stay tuned. I'll bring you right back. On second thought, I think I am actually going to pull this collar off. The new bearing comes with a collar. It is slightly different than this collar now that I'm looking at it. So I loosened up the set screw on here, and I'm pulling it off. It was kind of stuck, but I just pulled it on it with my pliers a little bit, and it came right out. Because I really do want to actually clean up this surface here. Since my bearing was stuck on there pretty good, I want to get this all cleaned up and get it a nice smooth surface again. So I'm going to take some degreaser and clean it up. And I'm going to take a Scotch-Brite and clean it up as best I can so that my new bearing just slides on and off real easy. I'm actually going to put some anti-seize around that bearing just to try to help out a little bit to make sure that it stays off there. So let me go ahead and get that cleaned up. I'm also going to go ahead off camera here and clean up the other side. As you can see here, there's Permatex around here. That is from when you slide the new bearing on. People recommend putting Permatex around there because this part is in oil and you don't want the oil to leak through the bearing and, you know, leak out the back. So there is a little O-ring inside of the new bearing, which I'll show you in a little bit here. But that can get marred up when you're sliding this on here. So it's a good practice to put some Permatex around this back area to help that bearing seal up to keep that oil inside that chain case. So go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and get both those sides cleaned up, and then I'll bring you back. All right, we got both ends nice and cleaned up here. Here, I'll just show you this one. So my collar slides right on. My bearing slides right on too, right to where it's supposed to be. So that's good. Went ahead and cleaned up the other side too. You can see I got all that Permatex and stuff off of there. Hit it with some degreaser, and now we're ready to put that bad boy back in the sled. So let's hop over there and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so I went ahead and I wrestled it in there. I didn't show you on camera because you wouldn't really be able to see anything. It's just a big wrestling match. So basically I went down from underneath and I tilted the shaft up. You know, obviously went through my track there. Pushed the shaft through the chain case area, and that gave me enough space to lift up my bearing on this side and set it in place. Now, something important to remember. Before you put that bearing on, make sure you put the bearing retainer on the back side of it, or you're going to be a very unhappy panda by the time you come to put this together. All right, so then I got this up in place and pulled it back, and I've got my bearing sitting just right there. And you can see I put my two of my bolts, just pushed them through the retainer just to help keep everything in place while I mess around with the other side. So now let's go look and see what we got on the other side here. All right, so basically I've got my shaft sticking through there, so I'm going to go ahead and get my Permatex and get it smeared around this area right here, all the way around, just to make sure I get a good sealing surface when I slide my bearing in. So I'm going to go ahead and set up and do that, and I'll bring you back once I got you on the tripod here. 1 second. Alright, so I'll try and show you the best I can here, but no promises. So I'm just going to take it on my finger. Got my Permatex gun here, yep. Then we'll just get a bit around the inside there. And as I slide my bearing around, it will go ahead and push some of that against that seat there too, but helps if you have small fingers, which I don't necessarily have. Do just a little bit more because I'm not quite happy with that. There, I think I got a good healthy amount around there. All right, so I'll clean off our fingers. We'll put our cap back on our gun here. Now we'll grab a bearing. All right, two things with the bearing. You want to make sure that the protrusion is sticking out this way because that's going to rest against your gear. And I saved this O-ring from the last time. The new gear didn't come with an O-ring, or the new bushing didn't come with a bearing, didn't come with an O-ring, but that goes up top here, and that helps seal the top side of this. Now, some guys will put Permatex on there. I have not done that, and I have not had any issues with it. So I just go ahead and I put it on there, and that sandwiches between the inside of the case and the retainer when I'm putting it on there. So I go ahead and slide our bearing on. Got to lift up so that the bearing goes inside the case there, and make sure you slide your O-ring back as far as it goes. Okay, now that's set. So now I can put my retainer back on. I grab that in the nuts. Where are they at here? Okay, so we'll go ahead and slide our retainer back on. And our tree nuts. Okay, and let me go grab my ratchet. I don't think I brought that over with me. 1 second. All right, now we'll go ahead and tighten that bad boy back up. I like to do it kind of evenly, just to make sure nothing's going on there cockeyed. I don't know if you guys can see right now because my shoulder's probably in the way, but that's all right. Okay, that's snugged up. Let me go grab my gears. All right, now this part's important, fellers. So before you put your chain on and before you button everything back up, you need to check to make sure that your gears are parallel with each other so that your chain rides evenly. Won't ride, wonky like this and wear out. So you take your gears, you slide them on, put your washers on, and you tighten your nuts down. Now this top gear is going to roll free, so it really helps if you lock your brake, because that'll keep that from spinning, and you can do a good job of tightening it down. So you got both those tightened down. Now you want to take a straight edge that can span from this to this flat surface on the gear here and this flat surface on the gear, and you need it long enough so that you have a little bit, a good inch or so on both portions of the gear. So I find it easiest to run from here to here, right? So from the left side of the top gear to the right side of the bottom gear. I take my straight edge and I lay it flat on here, on the gear faces, and you look and see, are we flat? Okay, so if you have a good straight edge here and you're flat, you should see no gap at either the top here or the bottom here where it's resting on the gear face. If you see a gap, that means you're not parallel, you're not flat. You are allowed a tolerance, and I believe the number, it's either 20 or 30 thousandths. I'd have to look it up, but you're allowed 20 or 30 thousandths mismatch there. But in my case, since I have everything lined up perfectly, It's dead nuts even, okay? So now that's gonna stay there. Now you can adjust that if need be by moving your locking collar, right? So right now my locking collar is free, so I was able to suck that shaft all the way this way, and that's where my bearing wound up. So every time I've done it and I've been able to get my bearing on all the way without issue by cleaning up that surface really good, it's come out dead nuts perfect like this. Now you may have issues where it doesn't, so that's why you don't lock your locking collar on the other side yet. You can lock that after the fact, and you can use that to help adjust yourself. But right now I'm in good shape. The locking collar is free, so now once I get this side buttoned up, I can go over there, slide my locking collar. It'll be this way, or actually it'll be this way. Nope, I'm sorry, this way against the bearing, the portion of the bearing that's protruding out, and lock that collar in place using the set screw, and everything should stay right where it needs to be. Just dead nuts perfect. So just like this. I don't know how well you can actually see that on camera here, but it is perfect. It's in perfect operating condition. All right, now I can go ahead and pull my gears back off and get my chain on. So I'll go ahead and do that. You don't really need to see that. It's just kind of a little bit of a wrestling match. You got to get your splines to line up properly and get that chain on, and then you're in good shape. Also, at this point, I do like to take my chain and spray it down with brake clean to get any kind of the goo out of there, and then just give it a light coating of some sort of a lubricant. Like I use this super slick stuff, or you could use light oil or something like that, just so that when you do start it up, it's not completely dry. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll bring you back for the next step. All right, chain is on, gears are on. Good idea just to double check, since you pulled the gears back off, to make sure that your gears are how you want them to be. Hopefully you can see that there, but gears are parallel with each other, so that's perfect. Okay, now let's put our chain tensioners back together. I had this guy just kind of stowed up out of the way, so there's a hole right here in that bolt. You got to swing that up. Probably is going to be helpful if you use a needle nose for this. Hopefully I can show you. But yeah, grab a needle nose. Get it. Oh, I missed. There we go. And then don't forget your little cotter pin that goes in there. This one's still in okay shape. All right, go ahead and drop him in the hole there. Come on. There we go. Push him all the way down. There we go. Yep. 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 All right, now nothing's in the way. All right, now that does hold tension on this butt. This one does have a tensioner also, so we're going to go ahead and screw that in. Like I said, I left this one about where it was before, so we'll just make sure that we're making contact. Yep, we are. Chain has good tension on it. All right, so I need a 9/16 wrench and a 9/16 inch socket. So use the socket to hold it, and then you tighten your jam nut. I think I went too far now. Back her off ever so slightly. All right, now we tighten our jam nut. Come on. Okay, make that good and tight, because you do not want your chain to come loose. Double check your tension. I mean, you want it tight, but you don't want it like super tight. You want it to be able to, spin pretty freely and be okay. All right, make sure that there's no goo inside of your seal here. Not a bad idea to spray it down with some brake cleaner or something just to flush it out, which I think I'm going to do here as soon as I go find it. And you just slap your cover back on and put all your bolts back in, and then that's good to go. You can top it off with fluid. So let me go ahead and spray that out, and I'll bring you back. All right, chain case is back together here now. Everything's tight. What I like to do when I'm putting all the bolts in is, get them all hand tight, and then go like in an opposite star pattern, kind of like you do when you're tightening the lug nut on a car, just to make sure that chain case goes on evenly and gets seated properly. All right, now it's time to put some oil back in. So I did put my drain plug back in underneath, so don't forget to do that, or you'll be mighty unhappy when your brand new chain case oil leaks out on the floor. ZR800s, I think most of the Arctic Cats, hold 8 ounces of fluid. Now I'm using an AMSOIL full synthetic here. You can use cat chain oil. Guys say they'll use ATF, whatever. I haven't had any issue. I've been using AMSOIL since I've had this sled, so not really an issue. So this is a 16-ounce container, so I'm just going to basically dump half of it in. We'll check and see what our depth is, and then this side will be done. Oh, I gotta open her up. The tear here didn't tear so easy. That's what's taking me so long off camera here. Sorry about that. Don't want to get any goo-goo in there. All right, so we'll go ahead and funnel is a must for this situation. So I'm going to get this guy pressed in there pretty good, and I'm going to dump in 8 ounces. Let her drain down. A little more than that. Let's see where we're at. Yep, that's about 8 ounces. All right, let that drain down. She's precious, don't waste any. Let her get all the way down in there. Take her out. Just let it drip for a second. There's a dipstick down here at the bottom. Let's see what she has to say. Yep, I don't know if you can see that or not, but we are perfect. All right, so we'll go ahead and put our dipstick back in, put our plug back in, and then this side's done. We just have to go ahead and put our exhaust back together in the reverse order that we took it apart. So you already saw me take it apart, so if you wanna put it back in the same order, just watch the tape backwards. Ha, just kidding. All right, so I'll go ahead and do that off camera, and then I'll bring you back for the next steps. So stay tuned. All right, now it's time to work on our skid here. So as I mentioned, we're gonna replace these torsion springs. All right, so first thing I have to do is get them out of there. So I think I mentioned earlier, I have this on my stiffest setting right here. So there's three lobes on that triangle. You can see that one's the thickest, this one's the thinnest, so that's putting the most tension on that torsion spring. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that up. So all you really need is a 13/16 ratchet. You wanna be careful because these are just plastic. Hopefully I can do that with you guys seeing me here. So those are just plastic nuts on there, but there we go. That's all it took. That one's on the lightest setting now. We'll go ahead and do the same thing over here. Oop. There. Now I took the tension off. Okay. Now we got to go ahead and get these guys off. First things first, though. You notice these are clocked in a certain direction. This is where the top of your skid mounts up to your skid frame up in the back there. So you want to keep this angle the same. So I'm going to take a paint pen and mark on that nut and on that right there where we're at, so that I know I put it back together the same way. Right, so I know I just have to line up the dots. Do the same thing on the other side. Line up our dots. And there we go. Okay, now I can go ahead and get this unbolted. Looks like I just need 1/2-inch bolts, and that should take these off and they should slide out. Remember, don't lose your bushings and your washers and all that stuff up here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get those unbolted, and I'll bring you back for the next step. Stay tuned. All right, those actually came off pretty easy. I did hit them with a little bit of penetrant before I tried to take them off, but once I actually got both these nuts and bolts, or bolts loose, they just kind of slid right off, so that was good. I also put an L and an R in there for left and for right-handed, but I got both sides off, so that went pretty smooth. All right, now we're going to try to get our bogey wheels up off of here. So there's a plastic spacer in here, and then the bearing just rides on the shaft, and I can see I got some corrosion there. So this may be a trick. Hopefully I can get it off without destroying that bogey wheel and bearing, but we're going to go ahead and hit it with some penetrant and just give it some light tappy-tappies and see if we can't get it to slide off. So stay tuned and I'll bring you back if I run into any issues. Alright folks, what I wound up doing is popping off that bogey wheel. There's a snap ring on the back, so you're going to need a snap ring, pliers, and a little flathead helps, and a needle nose to get that off, and then I just tapped my bogey wheel off. Now this bearing does feel like it needs to be replaced anyways. It's not grinding or anything, but it's real stiff. As you see, this one like rolls pretty easily. So that one's probably okay, but and it's really seized on the shaft here. So I'm going to try tapping from the back side here a little bit, but I think what I'm going to wind up doing is using a puller, which will probably destroy the bearing, but it's not the end of the world, so we'll see where we get to, but I think that's what I'm going to wind up doing, and then just replacing that bearing. But we'll give her the old college try and see what happens here, so I'll bring you back. All right, folks, the puller is working. You can see I've got it to move, I don't know, about a 1/4 inch so far, but that sucker was on there. But she's moving now pretty good. I keep hitting it with penetrant to help it slide, but she's moving. So I will have to replace that bearing, no doubt about it now. So I'm going to go ahead and work that one off, and then we'll work on the other side. 1 second. All right, both sides are off. Before I put everything back together, once I get these springs off, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up really good just to make sure that's nice and smooth and shiny. Okay, so next part is the fun part. So we're going to get the torsion spring off. So I've already removed my nut here. I think this is the best way to do this. Never actually taken the torsion springs off here before or loosen them up, so this will be new for me. But if anybody has a better way of doing it, please comment in the description. But here's how I'm going to do it. So I loosen up that nut, and this shaft goes all the way through. So I'm going to drive that in. Now, that is under tension, so that's going to want to pop back up on me. So I'm going to do a good job of holding it as I'm driving that bolt in, and we'll see what happens here. So, yeah, let me get set up, and I will give that a shot. 1 second. All right, folks, here we go. I could really use an extra set of hands here, but got to work with what you got, and I got 2 hands. So, I actually clamped on here with a vice grip just to give me a little bit of extra, grabbing power. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drive this bolt in, and then I'm going to slowly tap it with a punch here to get it to the point where there's a nut or a washer on there, so keep that together. I'm going to get it to the point where it's fairly loose. Oh, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. Oh, I'm almost there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and drive that in a little bit more, and then I should be able to swing that out. Okay, we're actually right at the teeter point. There we go. Okay, so it's trying to drive down. For some reason, I was thinking it's going to drive up, so we're actually in pretty good shape here. All right, that's good. Go ahead and save that guy. I can take my tension off here, and then I can go ahead and drive my bolt all the way through, and that's how I got to get the other side off. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll bring you back and we'll compare what our torsion springs look like. So 1 second. All right, I got the first side back together here. Not completely together, but I got the torsion spring on. That was quite the feat. I basically had to tip it up on its end. I had it in that position there, and then basically just forced it up with my hands until I got the torsion spring about where the hole was and drove the bolt through. Now I'm going to have to do the other side, but here, let me show you the difference in the springs here, right? So I've got my 2 old springs right here, and I got my new spring right there, right? First thing I notice is this here. It's leaning, this one's leaning back this way, this one's leaning up this way. So this spring has actually, it just from the wear over the years has bent a little bit this way, so giving us a little bit less tension on that back portion back here where the that torsion spring adjuster goes. So that's good. Putting that one on, I can feel that it's a lot stiffer than this one just because of the age. I mean, this sled is 20 years old, so 20 plus years old. So, it's seen some things in its day. All right. So the other issue I've found here is the new springs are just slightly longer. So these, like I said, these springs are from, I believe, a Pantera. So Pantera is a long track, so they're a little bit longer. So when I lined up that side, I deemed that if the sled fully compressed, those would actually hit the skid. So I cut that one down to match these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with this one. Just make a mark and cut it down right there so that they match. Then we'll go ahead and get the other one back in. I'm just using a cutoff wheel, death wheel, to cut that off, cut it off, pretty easy. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut off and then the other side put back in, and we'll see where we're at. So stay tuned. All right, I got my other side in. Wasn't too much effort to get myself in there. One thing important to note is this block here. There's an arrow that says up. Make sure you have that up on both sides, right? So let's go ahead and flip her down here. All right, next thing I want to check is this shock, just to see what kind of shape that's in. So I'm going to unbolt it here and just see what it looks like when it fully extends and how easily I can push it in. But like just looking here, I don't really see any oil buildup on here. Doesn't look like it's been leaking. It felt like it was performing okay last year, but I'm going to go ahead and unbolt it just to check it since we're here. So let me see how that is. 1 second. Well, for some reason my video didn't record and I didn't notice until I got it back together. But I pulled this shock out and it stays up on its own. You push it in, there is quite a bit of resistance, and it returns on its own. Now, it might be returning a little bit on the slow side, so I'll probably leave it for this season, just see how everything is, but it'll probably need a rebuild for next season, so that's okay. All right, I can't really put anything else back together right now because I do have to order these bearings for those bogey wheels. So I'll get those in, unless I have them laying around here somewhere that I can't remember if I have them or not, but I got to get those bearings, and then I can get everything else put back together. So one thing I am going to do, since the skid is out and it's going to be a lot easier, is grease everything. So I've got grease zerks everywhere, and it's going to be a lot easier to do it right now than when it's back in the sled. So I'm going to hit, there's 2 there, there's 1 there, there's 1 here, there's 1 there, and I think there's a couple other ones around here somewhere. I don't know, I'll look around, I can't remember. It's been, you only do this once a year, so you forget. So I'm going to go ahead and grease that stuff up, and I'll bring you back once I get my bearings in. So stay tuned until then. All right, guys, bearings are in. You can see the same size as the old ones. I've already gone ahead and done the first one to get it back inside of our bogey wheel here, so I'll go ahead and show you the second one on camera. So clean it out really good with carb clean. Scrubbed it out. All right, so got your bearing. You want to set it in there. Now you don't want to, I've showed you this in other videos before, but I'll just reiterate. You don't want to pound down on the inner race, okay? You want to set the bearing in there. You can get it started by hand a little bit, but you're not going to be able to get it all the way, most likely. You might be able to, but most likely not. The best thing to do is get yourself a seal driver kit. I have one made by Bauer from Harbor Freight. It's got various sizes and everything. It works great. So this way, I can pound on the outer race, okay? So we're going to set her in there. I don't know if you could hear that or not, but the tone change, that tells me that we're fully seated. And you can take a look, and you can see that snap ring groove all the way around, that it's exposed, so now we can get our snap ring back in there, all right? Go and just get yourself a cheap set of snap ring pliers. They're not overly expensive. I've had this one for, I don't know, probably 15 years. That's really the best way to get this stuff out of here, but basically you take your snap ring, squeeze it together like so. Of course, I'm going to fumble on camera to get it done, but come on. Oh boy. See, the first one went in real easy, and that's just because I wasn't filming. All right, snap ring is down in there. Make sure that you push on it, just let it fully seat. You can even take your seal driver and just give it a couple little love taps, and it might help it seat better. I always like to work it a couple times in and out just so that I can see that it's seated in there. But it looks like we're in good shape on this one. We're in the groove. Everything is where it's supposed to be, and yeah, looks just like the other one. So we are all set. Now we can go back over to the skid and get these things installed. So I'll bring you back once we're over there. All right, I've already gone ahead and I've done the first one over here. So what I did is I put some anti-seize on the shaft there. There's not as much on there as what it looks like. That stuff is just nasty if you've ever used it. Anyways, just to help it slide on there a little bit easier and to help it so that it doesn't get, you know, bonded like worse than it was before. All right, so anyways, we want to take it so that our snap ring is in towards the middle and get her all lined up there. And I'm actually going to use one of my old bearings to help drive this on here. So it's a snug fit, right? So I'm going to take my old bearing like so and just give her some tappies. Try to alternate side to side so it kind of like wiggles on rather than just like cocking and, you know, going on. Let's see. There is a little lip on there, so we're driving it on until it gets to the lip, and then we're done. I think we might be there. Looks about, yep, I think we're there. Okay, so we can test to make sure that we're where we want to be, because we can put our thinger back on here, and there. We have just, whoops, it's basically flush right there, so that's where we were before. So we're good. Now we can go ahead and put these bad boys back on, making sure we get them in the exact same spot that they were before. And then, whoop, I'll bring you back once it's time for the next step. So stay tuned. All right. Well, I went ahead and I actually popped my Speedo gear back on, put all my bolts back in my chain case, or on my Speedo bearing housing there, and then pumped that bad boy full of grease after I wiped out all the old grease. So that's all good to go. Now we get to actually wrestle the skid back inside the track. One thing I forgot to mention, don't forget to put your spacer back in. Whoops, it goes right here. There's a plastic spacer right there that shows you exactly where this thing needs to go. It basically puts this almost flush with the shaft here, puts this thing almost flush with the shaft here. The shaft just sticks out a tiny bit. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get that wrestled back in there. I showed the struggle in my video that I made, I think it was last year, where I did some preseason maintenance, so I'll link that up here if you want to see that, but you don't need to see that right now, so I'm going to go ahead and wrestle that thing back in there, and then I'll bring you back once it's time to test out our suspension and see if we made a difference. So stay tuned and I'll bring you back. All right, folks, we got everything back together and tensioned as it should be. We've got the sled completely back on the ground, skis, skid, everything else is on the ground. So let's go ahead and redo the measurement we did before. So if you remember before, our just static, well, get my tape measure out. My static height was 23¼ inches, okay, to the top of the grab bar. So right now, we are, hopefully you can see that, we're about, I'll call it 23½ inches to the top of the grab bar. So we're 1/4 inch taller, not really a big deal, but the big thing is, okay, how does it act when I sit on it? So I'm gonna go ahead and set up the tape measure on the tripod, and you can be my eyes again, so we'll see what happens. So let me get set up and I'll bring you back. All right, we've got the top of our tape right at the top of our grab bar there. We'll go ahead and sit on it. Before we had 3 inches of drop. We'll see what we get this time. I didn't feel anything. I'll go ahead and review the footage and we'll see where we're at, but I didn't feel it move at all. So let me go ahead and review that footage. 1 second. So I'm seeing that was about a 1/2 inch of drop, which is probably too stiff. So I had the torsion setting on number 3, so it's stiffest setting. So I turned it down to 1, the softest setting. We're going to redo that test and see what we get here. So let me hop back on and see where we're at. Yeah, it feels a little softer. All right, let me review the footage and see what it says. All right, that time it looked like we got a little over 2 inches of drop. Okay, so that's still better than we were before with 3. I went ahead and I put it on the middle setting 2. We're going to redo the test one more time just to see where we're at. So let's see what we got. All right, let's review that footage and see where we're at. All right, that said we had about 1 inch to 1.25 inches. So I'm thinking setting 1 or 2 ought to be adequate for what we're doing. I'm going to keep it at number 2 right now. Let me hop on and just give her a couple bounces and see how she feels. I don't know, I think I kind of like that. So I think I'm going to leave it right there, and then, once we get on the trail, it's easy enough to test and tune and see if I want to do anything different. So we'll keep it right there for now. All right, we're going to try one more experiment before we call this a video here. I mentioned earlier, towards the beginning, about moving my scissor arm back forward because I had it all the way to the back. When I got the sled, it was actually in the second notches here. And I wound up moving it all the way to the back because that did help the suspension collapse a bit slower. So now I'm going to move it up, or I already did off camera. I moved it up to the middle, okay? It was a big pain in the butt doing it with the skid and the sled, but I did manage to do it. It would have been a lot easier once I had everything out and the torsion spring is not on there, but I managed. I put it in the middle. So what that's going to do is raise up your initial height, and it will let your suspension collapse a little bit sooner, but you do have more travel there. So let's see where we're at. Take out my trusty tape measure here, and we are basically at about 24 1/8 to 24 1/4. So we're up about a little over a 1/2 inch from where we were before. which is okay. But now we should have more travel. So I'm going to go ahead and set us back up on the tripod, and we're going to take our measurements and see at the various settings how far we sag now. So stay tuned. All right, we're at setting number 1 on our torsion spring block. Okay, get off and review the footage, see where we're at. 1 second. All right, looks like we had about 3 inches of sag there in number 1. Now, I can tell you for a fact, I didn't take a tape measure before, but when I first set up the sled this way with the 136 and I sat on it on tension number 3 with the scissor moved forward, I had a lot more sag than that. It was like, I'd say 5 inches or so, right? So I'm at 3 on number 1. So, all right, so let's go ahead and check number 2 right now. So I got it set on number 2, and we'll hop on and see what that one says. Okay, hop off. Let me review the footage and I'll give you the result. All right, looks like we had a little bit over 2 inches on that. So now let's check it with number 3. Pretty stiff. All right, let me see what that one says. All right, there we had a little bit under 2 inches. So I think number 2 is still going to be our magic number there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at number 2, and then once we get some snow, we'll go for a ride and see how it is. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this video. I call that a win. I can feel a definite difference in each torsion spring setting on there compared to the old spring. So this new spring is stiffer, and my old one was pretty clapped out being 20 plus years old. So just goes to show you can breathe a little bit more life into these old sleds if you choose to do so rather than purchasing a new one. If you like this sort of thing, please like and subscribe, and we'll keep this sort of thing going. Until the next one, signing off.